Good morning. This is Verna Bolden coming to you for the second time on my YouTube channel, which I call Just So You Know It All. I've never been more impressed or um, feel such an obligation to speak on a topic that I have lived with for many years, but never really felt like speaking out on a forum like this. But this is something that has touched me deep in my heart because I'm an American and I live in a country that is the only thing I can call it right now is the Great Divide. We're not one nation under God. We're not one nation where all people are created equal and treated equally. When I saw the beating of Tyre Nichols by black police officers, it made me understand that a lot of people in this country, especially the dominant race, do not understand us. And so I feel like it's my quest in life right now is to help people understand black people. My channel is called Verna G. Bolden, Just So You Know It All. Please subscribe and like so that I can continue to do what I do, and that is to speak for those that are not speaking. And I know that I am because as I listened last night to one of the Fox channel's moderators, commentators, that said that Whoopi Goldberg is stupid because Whoopi said exactly what I said about this situation, that this is not a black and white problem when you see police brutality. It's not just that the policemen are white that beat Rodney King, or that now it's a lesser crime because the policemen that beat Tyre Nichols were were black. It's a problem of how people see other people, and that determines how we treat them. Therein lies the problem, and therein lies the great divide that we live in. I spoke with raw passion last time on my first video because the outrage that I felt is the same outrage that people take to the streets. It's a frustration that you still don't get it. I know that I feel kind of like the Aflac duck that is speaking and trying to give the solution and nobody hears. It's time for people to hear. There's nothing that we can do just crying about it, whining about it, even being outraged about it if nothing changes. And we still see young citizens of this country, Americans, beaten and killed by other Americans because the ones that have the power to stop it don't even think it's a real problem and basically assign it to the victim. And the most sad thing about all of this is that then you bring in someone that looks like the victim, comes from the same culture as the victim, and have them speak to America and create a greater divide by saying it is the victim's problem. I heard ex-Sheriff Clark brought onto Fox News to tell everyone that might be on the fence about this thing. I mean, how could you deny how brutal this was? How horrible this was? But I want you to feel better, Americans, that don't feel like it has anything to do with you. I'll just bring somebody that looks like them, and he'll tell you that, oh, it's just black on black crime. That's not a problem. That's just what they do. But Americans, we are citizens of this wonderful country that we call home, regardless of how we got here. I got here in chains. My ancestors got here in chains. They were mistreated here. The Italians came here. They didn't come in chains, but they were mistreated here. The Asians didn't come in chains. They were mistreated here. The Irish came. They were mistreated here because we came to a country where the foundation was founded on something that is the biggest lie, and that is that it was a manifested destiny for a certain group of Europeans to come and, by any means necessary, make this their home exclusively, and using the bodies and the lives of other human beings to make that possible, pushing the indigenous people into the desert so that they could have the promised land. This wasn't right. Nobody could sit here today and tell you that any of this was right. But the history of all of this is being banned. It's being rewritten. But history is history. The same history that my classmates lived in that were white, I lived in. And my history, my story is going to be different. But both stories need to be told. Just like my grandmother's story needs to be told. And her grandmother's story needs to be told, because that is real history. We can have governors, we can have presidents that deny this country the right to know why it's in a mess right now. And that is the reason why we are in a mess right now. And it's not going to get better, Americans, because we call somebody stupid when we actually are the ones that are ignorant of their history, because it's been hidden from you. But we know our history. Black Americans are really the purveyors of real history, because we had to act a certain way to survive, but we knew that we were performing. The people that we performed for did not know it was a performance. They thought they really knew us. But when you're trying to survive and you're trying to keep your family safe, then you will shuffle and bow and bend and grin. That's our history. That's not who we are. It's never been who we are. Why is it about Black people? Because the things that are happening today in this country started somewhere. And until we unravel, go back and look at where the rope was put into a knot, and untie that knot. Let me put it this way. When you're watering your lawn and you find the hole stops sending water through, what you do to solve the problem is you go back and you find out where the kink in the link is that's stopping the source that you're seeking, which is water. You don't just keep trying to make it work, saying, oh, there's not a problem. You won't get anything done. You have to go back and look at where the problem is. And when you locate the problem, then you can continue to do what you're doing and move forward. This country is attempting to move forward in denial. It won't work. The problem started in our history. And now we have leaks in our present. And the leaks will become gushers in our future if we don't go back and admit, acknowledge, repent, and change. Because this is not a Black problem and a white problem. This is a human problem. This is a problem that started before there was history, before there was recorded history. And it is evil, and we're just seeing the effects of evil. And we're dealing with the effects. What we see with police brutality against Black people, even though I heard this same commentator on Fox say there's more white people being abused by the police than Black people, I don't deny that that may be true numerically. But when you live in a country where 25% of all of the murders by police violence were perpetrated against Black people, who make up 13% of the population, now you're looking at it in perspective and putting it in its correct context. That's too big. So even though there are whites that die at the hands of police, that's a problem for me. If Tyre Nichols had been Mike Jones or Dave somebody, and he had white skin or brown skin, hear me, Americans, that would not matter in the level of my outrage. It's an evil to beat a person to death. How dare you, anyone in this country, in this civilized nation, blame the victim and use the Candace Owens of this world, who's confused, and the Reverend Mannings of this world, who's confused, and other confused Black people, to justify what we have watched happen that should not happen to another human being. Don't find a reason to excuse it. Find a reason to exonerate it. To find a reason to eliminate it from our civilized nation. We will never change what we see. We will never become better. We will never become great again if we don't stop hiding what made us small and weak and violent and ungodly. I have no problem, and most people in this country, Black people, most of us are Democrats, and most of us have no problem with any conservative Black person. That's their right to be a conservative Republican. It's okay with me if they're MAGA, if they love Donald Trump. Most Black people in this country would have no problem with that. What we have a problem with are the people that claim to love Donald Trump and love the Republican policies, but turn on their own people. What's that about? That's not necessary for you to be a conservative. You can be whatever you want to be. I have people in my family that love Donald Trump. And that's not a problem to me. What is a problem to me is when my people are taken and used as pawns to excuse man's inhumanity to man. We have one race, people, and that race is the human race. And I intend to get deep into why we do what we do to each other. I want to explain why five black police officers could beat their own grandson or son or nephew, which is what Tyre Nichols represented. How could they do that? Are they animals? Where did this rage come from? Some have suggested that there was a personal agenda. Maybe so with one of them, But even that doesn't explain the rabbit kind of beast the rage, the animal anger, the animal rage that was perpetrated against this young man. It doesn't explain why they were so brutal and so vicious. But we know the answers. I do. And many of you will recognize the answers as well. I will be spending some time, because I can't be shut up, I will talk about race. I will talk about who I voted for in 2016 and why I voted for that person in 2016. And I will talk about how we must understand change has to come from us. And it has to come now, because we have a generation that's coming along watching a political party talk about God and saving the unborn and talking about handling the country in a way that we can eradicate crime and criminals, and clearly see no compassion for the poor, no compassion for the least of these. And then a party that talks about the least of these, a party that talks about the poor and making provisions for the poor, but seem to be completely oblivious to the fact that most of the black people in this country that are part of that party, because it speaks of, and in many cases delivers, social justice, but seems completely free of anything that has to do with our being a Christian group. Black people are disproportionately, or I should say, fundamentally Christian in this country. And we want to see God's take and God weighing in on what's happening. And we have many beautiful voices out there that do that. It's time for all of us to speak up. It's time for us to let people know why we think like we think, why we vote like we vote, why we do what we do, and why we are like we are. And that takes us directly to the rest of Americans that feel like black people are in their group, they do what they do, and white people are in their group and they do what they do, and the brown people and all the other people do what they do. But we are intricately entwined. And it happened at the beginning. And what happens to me happens to you. And what happens to you directly affects what happens to me. And we have to come to understand, if we don't go back and unravel that hose, the water will not flow. We cannot continue to move forward without knowing where we came from. Because just as the Holocaust is the Holocaust survivors celebrate their survival from this evil from Germany and the Nazis, and are free to talk about it, and are free to lament their history, and have made museums and monuments all over the world, including America, which hosts over 30 memorials or monuments to the Holocaust. Yet African Americans are accused of whining and stirring up racial tension when we want to talk about our history, when we want to remember what happened to us. It's not just a walk down memory lane, Americans. It is an opportunity and a necessity to go back in order to fix what's wrong now, or it's just going to continue to get worse. When you take all hope away from a whole people, a whole group of people, and you relegate them to the fringes of society, and you continually say no to them, even to their history, their children and grandchildren and their children's grandchildren's children are not going to continue to sit and take that. We're creating, and nor will yours, and we're creating a culture of pushback. And the more the resistance is there to allow freedom to reign and history to be told, and acknowledging the humanity and the right of people to be who they are in our country, because this is my country. No matter how I got here, we're all guests here. There was a people here when we came, and how they were treated, and how all of us were treated, and how we build walls to keep other people out is not who America was supposed to be. It's not what America is supposed to be. The lady that stands in the harbor in New York City says, bring me your poor, bring me your weak, bring everyone that is seeking freedom. And she still stands in the harbor. And God allowed this country to be here for his purposes. And it is not to put your foot on someone else's neck for 400 years. And then these descendants come along and put their knee on the neck of those descendants in front of everyone to see, and feeling like he could walk away from it. Or for blacks to exercise their self-hatred against a young man that had committed no crime. I'm speaking about George Floyd and Tyre Nichols, and I'd like to speak a lot more about the statistics of what happens at the hands of police in this country. And I'd like for you to tune in with me again. Please like and subscribe and listen, and let's walk down memory lane. Let's correct some things. Let's change some things. Let's acknowledge some things, and let's repent for some things and really be a nation. One nation, united instead of divided, under God, with liberty and true justice for all. This is Verna Bolden. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you join me in my next video.